We live. Amazing. Hey Nick, how you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. How you doing, Wayne?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Whereabouts are you dialing in from, by the way? Where anywhere in Europe?
Yeah,
Tracking
just
the location way too much.
I'll give Northern Europe.
Okay,
That's what I'll locate to.
nice, nice. Yeah, greetings to everybody on the interweb, internet. I'm all the way in Cape Town, South Africa, and yeah, welcome to what is probably just another exciting stream. I think Nick has been sitting on some alpha that we've been dying to share with the rest of you. And yeah, Nick, I think I'm just gonna go straight to the chase. Like, let's not beat around the bush. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, but like, did we even get a rake?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's
yeah,
just take it away.
awesome. Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, so today we wanted to do a kind of a show and tell bit for the year and where we want to go. And it's not normally what we do, but I think that we need to start changing the way that we communicate about kind of what Fuel is doing and what we're about and what we're building. I think the community needs to know and understand and see, and also just get a sense of where we're coming from and how we build and how we design things. So I'm going to share my screen here, and then we can get started. So let's do this, and all right. Is that good, Wayne? I guess looks right. All right. So I'll just caveat again that I think this is sort of a little out of our style that we've had before. We want to start actually presenting as much as we can, showcase what we're about, and showcase how we're doing it. So, hope everyone enjoys it, and we'll kind of do this more often and get more into the weeds and into a lot of topics over live streams and podcasts and so forth. So all right, so let's get into it. So the first thing is, I start a lot of presentations, which maybe is like a bit of a, is not great. Sorry, I've got two little dogs here, so we're gonna see how well this works. But basically, I start off a lot of things with the Bitcoin Genesis block. It's a pretty big deal, mainly because it guides a lot of the thinking around what Fuel is and how we started and how we built everything, mainly around UTXOs, but also around so many other fundamental things. Bitcoin really brings a lot of stuff into the fold. It brings home verifiability. It brings this idea of strong social consensus, a strong social layer. And it also brings a focus on fundamentals. So it's really all super important to the bigger picture of what blockchain actually is. So Bitcoin's really something that, while it's super limited, it brings up all the right things that you want to see, that you want to hear when you're talking about building blockchains. Aside from the fact that obviously it's super limited, just those like base layer fundamental things of trying to focus on fundamentals, trying to focus on verifiability and peer-to-peerness is all super important. When you're talking about building blockchains and you're talking about sort of the problems you face and the problems that a lot of people are facing, and also kind of the different things that a blockchain needs to deal with, the different, kind of set of challenges that blockchains have to kind of meet. You can sort of break this down into, I'm calling this the blockchain rhombus. A lot of people talk about this like scalability trilemma stuff, which is like a triangle. But in this case, I'm going to kind of showcase a blockchain rhombus here. Now there's like some crazy noise going on. I don't know where it's coming from. Let me pick up my dog and then we'll keep going. So this whole blockchain kind of rhombus idea is sort of silly to begin with, but it's sort of trying to get to this core idea of, we want to have home verifiability. We also want to have censorship resistance. We also want to have scalability and speed. And we also want to have an open design space. So these are all super important things if we want to have like kind of a blockchain that's going to really push the fold of what's possible for design in the blockchain space. So if you think about home verifiability, it's very much trying to get away from this core idea of, in whatever we trust. So we don't want to just trust servers. We don't just want to trust authorities. We want to have a lot more verifiability that we bring to the table. Similarly, with censorship resistance, we also want to have a situation with that where arbitrary parties can't just censor transactions. So if you ever had, an arbitrary party, Coinbase, someone else, just like shut down your account, a bank, these are things that, are oftentimes not what the users want and is, not really part of a good system that we want to build. Similarly with scalability and speed, you don't want to be running up crazy fees when you're using these systems. You want to have fees that are as low as possible. It increases the accessibility of the system, and it makes these systems really, something that the world could actually use. And the last thing is sort of design space. When it comes down to design and design space, you basically don't want to be reusing old tech that basically doesn't allow us to build the best possible products or the best possible apps. So all of these things are super important if you want to construct the best possible system. When we talk about scalability and we talk about, throughput, speed, and all that kind of stuff, scalability and being fast is really about, high throughput, but it's also about, low confirmation times, anywhere from, if you're a centralized exchange, you're talking about, milliseconds. If you're, just a regular blockchain, you're talking about maybe seconds. But we want to make sure that scalability is really taken care of when it comes to speed and performance. The second thing is security. So we don't just want a system that some server produces the result and no one can verify what it is. You want many people to be able to verify it, and you want many people to be able to verify it at home. So these are essential properties to a system that really can be and truly can be decentralized. As I mentioned before, censorship resistance, you don't just want a central party somewhere approving things. You want a system that, again, is going to be something that is very hard to arbitrarily censor by certain parties. And the last thing, again, is you want that design space. You want better apps, better user experience, better products. So all of these things are super important if you want to see this stuff succeed. Now, when we talk about what's going on in the blockchain space right now, what's going on, kind of across the whole space, a lot of people are just repackaging stuff that we've had before. They're doing the EVM, but they're doing it faster. Or they're doing alt layer ones, but they're doing that in a rollup. A lot of that stuff doesn't really help us. It's a lot of duct taping old solutions to things that we already have much better solutions for. And so really, we kind of have been shoehorning ourselves into these old paradigms, these old models. And quite frankly, it hampers the whole space. It hampers the potential of the space. And it ends up being kind of a crazy sort of duct tape together sort of thing. And it's never positive. So basically, when you see these systems, it's like they always need more duct tape. They always need kind of more duct tape to make the whole system function. With Fuel and everything we do with Fuel, we design always from first principles. So basically everything that we do is about first principles architecture and trying to make sure that we holistically solve the problems that are facing the space. So when we talk about Fuel's philosophy and we talk about what we design from, we always design from first principles. That's really like a key thing. And home verifiability is also super important. We want people to be able to verify this, whatever the proofs are, in a home setting. And we also want the system to be fast and safe. So we really do think all of this is achievable. And, it's achievable even on boards like the ROX 5B or other boards like that. This is really an approachable goal. When it comes to, our unique position in the space, we're really born out of sort of modular and roll-up era design. It's really something that, it's where we come from. We're not building, just old blockchain stacks. We're building kind of newer era modular architecture that can actually perform and scale under load and under pressure. And this also goes to like a different style approach to building these systems. So basically vertical integration is really, really key. And trying to avoid patchwork architectures when people just duct tape things together and, slam it all in one package. We actually want to make sure that the whole system works well together. And the last thing is that Fuel is really about trying new things. a lot of the architecture that we've picked and a lot of the things that we do is really about trying new things. It's about trying new ways of kind of designing these systems. And that's really, really crucial for, our whole kind of picture. So when it comes to kind of what is Fuel and just sort of bringing that to the fold and what that is, Fuel is really, what I would say is the ultimate technology stack for building blockchains and applications. It's everything that you really want when you're actually, building this style stack. So, on the virtual machine side, we built a custom VM that is for modern blockchains. It's really designed for all the different challenges that we see in the space. When it's the transaction model side of things, we use an unspent transaction output model similar to Bitcoin. That gives us parallelism. It gives us native assets. It gives us all kinds of interesting design space that gets opened up. That's pretty well underexplored at this point. As well on the language side, we built our own language called Sway. And this really brings the best parts of Rust and the best parts of Solidity together into a single language, a blockchain-oriented language. And then we have our own tool chain, the Fuel Orchestrator and Fuel Up. And these are kind of like our Foundry or Forage sort of tools for Sway. And it's really an all-in-one kind of experience that you would get. With the sequencer side, we have our own sequencer, which is really about designing for fairness, speed, and scale. So we want to make sure that we actually design the best possible sequencing system we can think of, and one that approaches all aspects of how you would construct a blockchain in the best possible way. And lastly, we have as well, the network of Fuel itself that's running on Ethereum right now, Fuel Ignition, and that's an Ethereum layer 2. And this is really about, Ethereum assets and security, but doing it at scale and doing it with a more modern approach and a modern architecture. So when you think about the space and you think about kind of what architectures are available, there's actually not that many architectures for different kinds of firms to bring to the table. So you have EVM style architectures, you have SVM, you have MoveVM, you have Cairo, and now, of course, you have Fuel. And the thing is, bringing a new architecture into the fold is super painful. It's extremely difficult. It's one of the hardest things you can do, I think, in any space. But in our case, it's one of the hardest things that, we knew this was going to be really difficult. But we also wanted to build a holistic system, a holistic solution that brought in the best parts of a lot of these architectures into a single form factor. And the Fuel VM really does this in many ways as its virtual machine, as the sort of core of the system. But it also kind of brings up sort of these questions of, okay, but how does a stack rank against, say, a lot of the existing space and the existing solutions? So when we go to metrics and just kind of have a broad strokes approach here to metrics in general, on the rollup side, and these are sampling from different rollups as sort of like, this is the farthest you can go, or sort of the cutting edge we see as of Q4. And again, some of these numbers are kind of ballparking a little bit, but it's just to try to give a sense of what cutting edge numbers would be in the current space right now. So on the rollup metrics side, you can see kind of like around 1,000 TPS, from Starkware. That's kind of what you're going to get on Ethereum DA right now. It can go higher, but that's what you're getting right now. Soft finality, Arbitrum's at around 250 milliseconds. With fault proving, Fuel V1 showed stage 2 is possible. With decentralized building, there is a few rollups right now experimenting with that in the base model, Tycho and some others. So, that's kind of what you want in a rollup for Ethereum. With the layer 2 side, you want to get into, you're getting into a little more throughput now. You're not so constrained by Ethereum. You can kind of, expand a little bit. So, we saw Eclipse kind of touching 12,000 plus TPS, something like that. It might have gotten to 14, not sure. Soft finality, you see things like Hyperliquid trying to go below the 50 millisecond mark with their block times, things like that. With fault proving, I haven't seen many stage 2, actually, in this case, stage 2 alt DA layers, but it's out there. And again, there's some projects with a bit of decentralized building right now. And then lastly, on the sequencing side. So again, this can be anything from DA layers over to sequencers, but basically on what I call the sequencing side, we kind of have Ethereum with greater than, say, 8,000 physical boxes in terms of nodes. The throughput, right now for, I think, Eigen is around 15 megabytes per second, something like that. And then block times or commitments, you kind of have Solana at like 400 milliseconds for, kind of a sequencing system. So these are just touching on some numbers that are somewhat cutting edge, you would say. And these are kind of the numbers to beat if you're going to bring an interesting system to the fold. And so, the numbers in one sense matter, and in another sense they don't. In one sense, they matter a lot because people give a shit about TPS and numbers and speed, and that's what people understand. But in another sense, it's also, the numbers need to be set against the context. Is it on Ethereum DA? Is it on Alt DA, et cetera, et cetera? And what is the kind of goal that you're trying to achieve with these systems? So now that we have an idea of just some of the metrics of the space, we can kind of get into, where Fuel stands and also where Fuel is, wants to go, and the kind of capability and possibility that Fuel brings to the blockchain kind of architecture space, and as well just what this architecture is capable of. So to start it off with Fuel Ignition. So right now we're hitting about 600 TPS, 1 second block times. We definitely, and we know we can see much higher TPS for Ethereum on Ethereum's current DA right now. And the goal of Fuel Ignition is not only to be sort of a hub of fuel and a hub on Ethereum, but it's really also a system that wants to be, and the aim is to be, the fastest rollup on Ethereum. And that's getting into, well beyond the 1,000 mark, into 5,000. And then as Ethereum DA expands, trying to get that up to whatever we can possibly push it in terms of DA throughput. So we want to see Fuel Ignition get up to that 5K number, at least on current DA. We know that that's possible right now. So, that's one side of this. But beyond that, we've had a lot of teams and a lot of people ask us, what can Fuel do? And we want to do a lot more throughput with our app. We know we can fill up 5,000 TPS. We want, to go a lot further. We want to go a lot more higher throughput. What can Fuel do to kind of alleviate my problems and alleviate, that system? And so we've heard a lot about that feedback. And so Fuel's actually been in the background building a second layer. And this layer is what we're currently calling, redacted. But basically, we don't have a name for it necessarily yet. And again, we want the community, if you have a great name, we'd love to hear it. But this layer is a little different. This layer is about kind of taking the gloves off with Fuel and really seeing where we can go. And this layer, we want it to be the fastest layer 2 in history. And we always wanted to hold that title. And so this layer is about using a little more of the server building, using a little more of, a little more firepower on the node side, and also using Alt DA to try to really push the boundaries of what Fuel is possible, what's possible with Fuel. And this is something that, again, we see being really useful for things like gaming applications, AI, agents, stuff like that, and sort of a relief layer from Ignition. Because while Ignition's on the lower TPS side right now in terms of usage, we do see in the future a lot of throughput coming through. And again, when you have that, you want to have these kind of really expansive layers that you can do, single context execution. So we're really excited about that. And I think, that's just going to be a crazy entry, I think, into sort of the layer 2 space. And lastly, tying everything together, both with this layer and Ignition, we have the Fuel Sequencer. And with the Fuel Sequencer, we want to make this the most decentralized sequencing layer in history. And that really means, approaching all the numbers when it comes to the size of the proposer network, and also the amount of data throughput that you can move through a sequencer. If you want to do things like move all of the raw data through the sequencer for things like interoperability, for things like, different styles of communication, different styles of bonding commitments. And this layer, we want to have a proposer network of 10,000 proposers. And this does mean that we're going to have, there's going to be a lot of choices made in order to get to that number. And yes, it's not something that you're going to be running 10,000 votes per block. You're going to be doing committee style architectures, etc. But we really want to bring it up to that level because we want to have that style system for both censorship resistance and speed and scale for Fuel's architecture. And of course, all of this is really powered by Fuel. It's powered by our underlying cryptoeconomic system, both on the sequencer side and how different mechanics work, both with this redacted layer and with ignition. So again, just to kind of recap, Fuel Ignition is really our home base on Ethereum, and that's really to be the best rollup possible on Ethereum DA, a real rollup with using Ethereum security and actually inheriting, Ethereum's decentralized network, but bringing scale to Ethereum in the truest form that we can design. When it comes to layer 2s and pushing the boundaries, we think this redacted layer is going to be the speed demon, basically. And this is going to allow us to be a lot more expansive with what Fuel is capable of. And this is really to kind of win the future of what we think execution can be for blockchains. And then lastly, we have the Fuel sequencer. And this is really about security. It's about fairness. It's about pushing the boundaries of decentralizing these systems and really acting as also a verifiable data layer for the internet. And in this case, we just want to win blockchain. We want to provide a great layer 1 option that really kind of does this in full form. So kind of getting into some of the details, with Ignition, you have sort of Fuel on Ethereum DA, and that's really the Ignition system. And this is more of a pure rollup. And again, the focus is more security and DeFi. And right now that's like around 600 TPS on surge capacity, but we can definitely get it up to 5,000 TPS on surge capacity, and then as well eventually on actual sustained capacity. When it comes to the block times, we know that right now we're at 1 second, but we think we'll probably reduce that down to 700 milliseconds while still retaining our peer-to-peer network. Again, it's Ethereum DA. We want to aim for stage 2 security. We want to fully decentralize the block building, forced transaction inclusion, via Ethereum. We also want the bridge to be shared between different layers, and having the shared bridge makes everything a lot easier in terms of interop. So that's very important. And then as well, an eventual Validium design for this network, and then as well verifiable at home. These are all the important properties we want to hit. Now with our expanded layer 2 system, in this like redacted layer. And again, if you have a great name for it, just let us know. We'd love to kind of get the community involved and see what people want to name it. This is going to be a little more focused on things like, gaming, AI, that sort of stuff. And this is a lot more expansive in terms of the throughput and TPS. So right now in internal benchmarks on an M3, we're getting around 150K TPS, but we haven't even started a lot of the core optimizations yet. So, this is just getting started, and that's only with, whatever an M3 has in terms of cores. So it's, there's a ways to go there in terms of, what we think the throughput can be. So we kind of put a plus there, but we think there's a lot more room to grow. As well, we do want to get down to 1 millisecond comps. I don't know if we really want to go to 1 millisecond blocks. I think that's kind of silly, but I think that 1 millisecond comps will, of course, in a co-located setting, be able to give certain parties a better result when it comes to things like order books and stuff like that, or application-specific sequencing in order to get the confirmation times down, and using some really great techniques there. We also know that the data system will have to change, so it'll have to be a lot more streaming-based in order for this to work. And we also want this to hit a stage 2-esque security, because it won't be on Ethereum DA, but we want it to hit stage 2 in every other way. This will have some semi-centralized building in the sense that it might require some larger builders, but we know that, we know we can get there and hopefully fully decentralize it, but it's kind of a little more on the side of like the builders are going to be a little beefier. Forced transaction inclusion, shared bridge, eventual Validium as well, and verifiable at home. So on the verifiable at home side, when you bring up TPS to this level, you do need to bring in a bit of sort of sharding, whether it's on the verification side, whether it's on different sides of the stack, in order for people to sample different areas of the chain and be able to ensure that it's safe. So this will be part of that kind of approach in that system. And again, we'll kind of have more details as as things progress. When it comes to the sequencer, on this, we're really trying to aim for, again, fairness, security, and a focus on decentralization. But we also want an enormous amount of bandwidth and throughput, really to expand the kind of application design that we can do with Fuel and the kind of rollups we can design with Fuel. So with this, we do want to approach with a sharded design around 170 megabytes per second. And that'll be really, really critical because basically we can move a lot of the throughput through this, whether we want it for interop or whether we actually want it for some form of DA. It could do both. And it, again, opens up a lot of expansive capabilities here. With that, I think we'll still kind of retain a longer block time of 1 second, but I do think that we could do other kinds of pre-comp designs there. With this, again, we want to approach 10K proposers. So that's going to be, what we see with that kind of system and that kind of design. But essentially, we'll hit all of these targets. And again, while the 170 megabytes per second is the total chain throughput, the bandwidth should still be low and consumer requirement for verification. And the idea there is, again, to use more of a sharded approach such that you don't need that much speed in order to verify. So that will be part of the construction. And again, and lastly, verifiable at home. And we also want to have, a number of rollup and sequencing facilities there for that. So, to kind of roll it back, we have Ignition, which currently sits at around 600 TPS. We want to bring that up to 5 on current DA numbers. But as Ethereum goes to its later upgrades, we do think we can push that a lot further. And Ignition will really still be something that I think will remain on these sort of lower, weaker boards like a ROX 5B. When it comes to this more redacted size layer, I think that for verification in a sharded setting, we'll definitely need something like a DAP node or an M series MacBook, but it's still consumer grade, and hopefully as well we can still retain all the consumer bandwidth targets that we want to design for. And for that, again, right now we're hitting 150K TPS in internal benchmarks. So we'll see where that goes as we improve that over time. But we're super excited to kind of open up that expanded capacity and see where that goes. And we don't have any release target or timeline right now for this, but it is something that is coming for Fuel in 2025. And then lastly, on the sequencer side, we want to hit this 10,000 proposer number, basically because I didn't get into blockchain to have 100 nodes propose. I want many thousands of nodes proposing all around the world. And I think it's very important that we try to aim for those goals always. Otherwise, it's not worth kind of doing a blockchain, basically. So, when it comes to Ignition, again, we're sort of evolving that system. We're improving its security stages. We're bringing up more throughput. We're also going to improve the Fuel architecture and integrate that. So more ZK opcodes, light clients, data streaming, full execution tracing, things like this. And we do want to make it Validium ready. So the Plasma Cache style Validium system, we actually want to bring to the table too, such that even if Ethereum DA were to vanish tomorrow, so long as the Ethereum execution layer is still verifying proofs, you could still exit the chain or continue using the chain in a more Validium style way, which I think is ultimately the best possible design you can get to. But we'll see where we can take it. With the sequencer, right now we're in sort of this Tendermint, more optimistic setting of 6-second block times and 12 proposers. We're going to try to evolve that into 100. Also increase the amount of data throughput that we can do with this chain. Improve the amount of services that we have, as well add in the facilities to do full decentralized block building. And then lastly, we want to get to this sort of fully more oriented design around super high throughput and a more ZK native architecture, really to aim at a much higher proposer number and to try to bring this sort of verified data layer to the internet and as well, to service all of Fuel's rollups. So really, when we're talking about kind of winning blockchain and winning the kind of space in general, Fuel really is going to cover a lot of different verticals for a lot of different users, whether it's acting as a sequencer for certain layers, whether it's potentially, looking at new layer ones to activate execution over, whether it's doing layer twos with expanded DA, whether it's doing rollups in a pure rollup on Ethereum, or whether it's just providing a broad spectrum of services. This is what the Fuel architecture is going to hold for the future, and it's something that we're super excited about. And we were planning on releasing a lot of this information a lot later, but we kind of felt like we need to bring everyone in the community along with us, and we need to bring everyone to the table so that you guys can see what we're about, and you can see kind of the different things that we're working on and the different mentality that we have to design in the space. And so really, when it comes to all the different kinds of design, all the different kinds of rollups, different kinds of layers and architectures and apps, we're really excited to see all kinds of different rollups, experimentation happen both within Ignition, within our expanded layers, and also as its own rollups and its own layers across the entire ecosystem, all of which really powered by, again, the economic system that we have for Fuel, which is really going to be key for us into the future. So that's the end of the presentation. My little dogs, they wanted to bark in the intro, but now I have dogs. I want to thank everyone for kind of the support that we've seen for Fuel. I think Fuel definitely is going to have a crazy year in 2025. To the whole community and to everyone else, hopefully you found this interesting or exciting. Hopefully it didn't kind of go past you. We'll be doing this a lot more streams, a lot more podcasts, a lot more information, just to show what people in Fuel are doing and what we're contributing to. So again, really excited to bring all of this to the table, and let's fucking do this. Yeah. So that's the end of the presentation.
Nice, Nick. Yeah, man. Let's fucking do this. I'm actually so excited. Beyond bullish. I think the TLDR, like if the normies didn't really catch the technical piece, it's basically chain go fast, secure, and chain go fast. And it's just like there's so many exciting things that can come from this, and the use cases and the UX that you would want out of it. It's a perfect recipe. So super excited to guide everyone on this. I think for the sake of how much info there was to digest, I think it would just be appropriate if we could just maybe pass on the questions for now. We can answer and reply to the tweets after the stream. And I think there'll definitely be a follow-on, because there's many nuances and caveats that a lot of people might miss or would want to figure out. And I think that just requires a whole nother stream. And we'll be doing these a lot more regularly, whether it's Nick or the rest of the ecosystem team, or even some of the projects in the Fuel ecosystem will be present. And we've got a lot more things cooking in the background. So Nick, thanks again for your time. Good luck in Northern Europe. I bet it's cold out there. And don't share your dog's names, because that'll definitely be a token or two.
I want to prevent that as much as possible. I want to have some life left. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Wayne, and thanks everyone.
Sweet. Cheers, everyone. Bye.